So my focus is so heavy in marketing, and this is how I describe it. Don't share the trials and tribulations of it until you've gone through it, because otherwise you're doing what I call woe is me marketing. Like,
Ah,
right? Buy my widget because I need you to help me.
oh, yeah, no.
Right? And this is so, and where I see this happening is in that direct marketing world,
Oh,
where they're
yes, that's a
literally
different.
texting you saying, "I need to make my goal." Well, what does it have to do with me?
I know.
And so there's this fine line, whether it's leadership, whether it's marketing, between lying, the influencer version of lying. The other end of the spectrum to me is what I call woe is me marketing.
Hmm.
And somewhere in the middle there is authenticity, transparency, healthy boundaries, and all the good words. Hi, I'm Erin Marcus, former corporate executive turned entrepreneur and founder and CEO of Conquer Your Business. Welcome to the Ready Yet podcast. We're excited to bring you more than 100 episodes of interviews and insights designed to help entrepreneurs get the financial and emotional freedom they need in order to build a business and a life they're proud of. And we're live, and I'm so excited. So welcome to this episode of the Ready Yet podcast that we're also live streaming because that's what we can do now. And I'm really excited to have Shannon with me today because it's kind of like sister from another mister, right? We met in a program that we're both involved in, and we've just watched each other grow and watched each other's challenges. And if you were around on her Instagram feed, you saw us, acting a fool and sharing the knowledge a couple days ago. And we're continuing that conversation. So, founder of YFlourish and the flourishing female entrepreneur, why don't you give everybody a little bit more formal introduction of who you are and what you do?
I would love to. I was just putting on my super rings. I always have to. Do
Oh,
you ever
nice.
have those rituals that you like to do before you get ready? Mine
Yes.
was always rings. I don't know. But
Mine's
anyway,
lip gloss.
okay, there you go. Much easier to deal with, right? Um, anyway, so yeah, I'm Karen, and I call myself the Experience Rich Coach because I have had four. This is the fifth business. And I have sold them each as I've grown them as I went along. And I have had so much fun building my empire that my goal is to help other women build their empires. And at this point in my life, I'm not 20 years old. So I've seen a lot, done a lot, sold a lot. I came from a nonprofit background. Like for my first 10 years of my career, it's totally nonprofit. So I do have a heart. Because sometimes I think people think we're in sales and getting people ready for business and we're just, like sort of hard, but not brittle. You're not brittle. We do our businesses a little bit different way. And I think that's why we have such an affinity for each other.
Well, and also a couple of things that I'm just going to jump out and say that you've already mentioned. So yes, purpose-driven payday.
Oh, I love that. Did you coin that?
No, I've heard
Oh, I
that.
love that. I'm writing that down right
Write it
now.
down.
Yes.
Purpose-driven payday. The more that I put front and center in my world, that I volunteer to wildlife rescue, and that's my world, the more I just attract people who also are purpose-driven. That doesn't mean the unfortunate reality of so many people who think if you have a heart-driven business, you're not allowed to make money. I know, for example, the funny example I always use is, great, I volunteer on Fridays at a wildlife rescue, and over the course of the summer, I take care of a couple hundred baby ducks. It's a mess, it's cute, it's exciting. How many more baby ducks could I help if I had $1 million to give away?
I know. That is the thing. It is about building a philanthropic silo to a business.
Yeah.
Because not only is it giving back in your time and your money, but it also helps you as you all grow your empires and it becomes bigger and bigger. You do need to work with a tax accountant attorney
Oh,
who will
all of
help
it.
you divert money.
Well, and so this is okay, I love that you said this, and this is the other thing. It's, business minded. Think of it this way. We all have to pay taxes, right? We all pay taxes. That's fine. We get services in response to those taxes, except truthfully, live in the state of Illinois, don't always agree with everything they do, but I wouldn't agree with everything everybody does in any other state. By having a charitable arm of my business, it gives me a tax deduction. The money, the total amount of money is still the same, but now I have a little bit more of control over where some of that money goes to.
Exactly. Yep.
So I'm not trying to avoid sharing and giving in return for the services. But truthfully, if I want a little bit more of my money to go to the causes that mean the most to me, and for me, the second half of that is I believe true change happens from the ground up, not the top down. And I'll say almost because there's a few exceptions. I don't even care what you support. Just make your voice heard, make your money heard, make your participation heard.
It's interesting because I have a few different degrees, and one of them is in community psychology. And that's all about normative culture, which is about looking at what are the norms that you have in whatever your environment is, whether you're looking at your business or your family, your relationship. What are the norms? What are the norms, the kinds of behaviors that are working and the kinds of behaviors that don't? And I look at that
You
in
must
my
be having
business.
a field day right now.
Yes. Yes. And I think about that in business all the time because while things are built from the bottom up, like sort of grassroots, I mean, I worked with Boys and Girls Clubs of America for
Oh,
many.
cool.
I had been to the Boys and Girls Clubs in
That's awesome.
Chicago many times.
One of my clients is really involved with them here in Chicago. That's awesome.
Oh, that's cool. They have a program called Smart Moves, which I actually wrote. I wrote that probably about 20 years ago, and they still use that as their prevention curriculum. But
Nice.
anyway, but shift to where we are now, and I look at, as you're doing your business, we all have in our head that a business has to be done a certain way. And I think what I love most about you, Erin, because you talk the way I speak about things, is that I your business is the culture, the norms that you decide it is. You
Yeah.
make the money you decide you're going to make. You have the people around you that you decide to pull in. And we all go through this thing where we hire people and they don't work out. And a lot of times, like I have always found, because I've had huge staff in different positions, and I've had like a small group of staff in a group. And actually, the smaller staff is harder because it's so hands-on compared
It's
to
more
having a large
intimate, right?
staff.
And
You've
we're
got
all in
more
each
layers
other's
of people.
business. The boundaries aren't so
I
clear.
know. I
Yes,
know.
I
We want to
agree.
be friends. In fact, it's really interesting. I was working with a retailer who is building and just exploding their business, and they had hired some people to work with them and kept wondering why do they have so many problems with staff. I'm like, they are not your friends. When you are the head of your own company, they are your colleagues. They are people you want to bring up and help. But at the end of the day, we're the friends, the colleagues that are at your same level that you can talk to. You can't talk to your staff about, you can
This
if you want, but it gets messy. You got to be
well, in
prepared for
right,
mess.
and in my world, we're pretty transparent with each other, but I
Mhm.
am always still aware who hears what and how am I showing up as the leader.
That's key. That is key. You set
Right?
the tone.
And
We
you're
set
gonna
the
laugh.
tone.
So, you know what I always think of when I think about this?
What?
Did you see that Harrison Ford and was it Anne Heche movie, 6 Days, 7 Nights, where they get so
No.
they're okay, so bottom line, they're in a little plane crash, they're lost on a island, there's pirates coming after them, and she's all manic and crazy, and he's kind of trying to reassure her that it's all gonna be okay, and
Mhm.
she's like, "Well, how could you say that?" And he goes, "'Cause nobody, no good can come basically of the captain running around with his hair on fire going, 'We're all gonna die,'
Right.
right? You
Yes.
have to remember that in your business. The business will not benefit if the leader of the business is running around with their hair on fire, screaming,
Oh,
'We're all gonna die.'"
you start doing that death spiral when you do that stuff because staff won't respect you, and that's
Well,
the
and
biggest
there's so
thing.
where then
Yes, what?
I'd love to hear your input then because I'm good at that part. But at the same time, you wanna be transparent, authentic, honest. You lying to the team, how many businesses have you seen go down in flames because they weren't at least slightly honest or transparent with the challenges? And the reason I say this is because Sometimes as the leader, we think we're responsible for a million different things and 100% of everything, when truth is if you were a little bit honest and transparent, the solution might be right in front of you.
Um, Being a fantastic leader and being a leader in the true sense is not divisible about are you transparent. There's things to be transparent about that you I guess I'd have to hear more about this whole transparency, the way you're discussing it, because for me, I am very straightforward with my clients. Everybody, I was the woman in college that when we had to do our first personality test, going for a psychology degree, the instructor said, okay, somebody here scored really high on the to be a flight attendant, and I don't want to know who it is. It was me because I really love helping people. I really want to serve and help people. But I do have, and I did get this from working in commercial real estate. I learned how to have boundaries and how to be assertive and do what I needed to do to get something done for somebody because I was representing them. And I
Yes.
feel the same way as a leader with my business and coaching, or I'm really going to coaching, consulting, mentoring. There's like different
Mhm.
hats we wear depending on
Right.
what people need. But when we talk about transparency, there's a there transparency is a word that I don't take lightly, and I know you don't either. But to be transparent because business is tough this month. Yes, we are going to have to do more lead gen to make money. To me,
Right.
that's being transparent and not covering it
100%.
up. But am I going to tell them that I didn't sleep last night because I'm worried about something?
That's
No.
not
And I know that's what
transparent.
you,
Right,
yeah.
that's unloading, right? And I think
Yes.
that's
Yes.
exactly the
That's a good
balance.
definition. That's a good division.
And so my focus is so heavy in marketing, and this is how I describe it. Don't share the trials and tribulations of it until you've gone through it,
Hmm.
because otherwise you're doing what I call woe is me marketing. Like,
Ah.
right? Buy my widget because I need you to help me.
Oh, yeah, no.
Right? And this is so, and where I see this happening is in that direct marketing world,
Oh,
where they're
yes, that's
literally
different.
texting you saying, "I need to make my goal." Well, what does it have to do with me?
I know.
And so there's this fine line, whether it's leadership, whether it's marketing, between lying, the influencer version of lying. The other end of the spectrum to me is what I call woe is me marketing.
Hmm.
And somewhere in the middle there is authenticity, transparency, healthy boundaries, and all the good words.
Well, it's interesting that you say that. I guess as you were saying that, and I'm such a visual person. That's why I'm always looking up. If you're into neurolinguistic programming at all, which I was so into early on in my career as a therapist, I was like so into it. So I'm always looking up. So if I'm doing that, it's not in space.
I
I'm
do
like
the same
thinking and
thing,
I'm
I think.
visualizing it.
I'm
Yes.
reading it in my head. No, I
Exactly.
100% agree
Yes,
that.
yes. But what I say when you're talking about there was a phrase that I have to say I have never liked this phrase, and it has been around since man and woman was born, right? But the fake it till you make it.
No.
That phrase always just I couldn't stand that. I never liked it. I didn't like it when I was 15 and running my first daycare in my parents' backyard, who shut me down very quickly. Because like, we don't have insurance for you to do daycare here.
That's a
And
silly.
yeah, to somebody who said to me, just fake it till you make it. I'm like, no, I will find a mentor to lead me through something, but I'm
Well,
not going to fake it till I make it. I
and there's
mean,
a difference between the phrase that I use now to replace that is act as if.
mhm,
Act as if.
mhm,
And it's less about lying and more about aspiration,
mhm. I
right?
can see that. I usually will tell people just be your authentic self, and I guess not using that phrase, but always saying, think, the think as if I really like that.
Well, and here's why. Here's why. The problem with completely dumping the concept of fake it till you make it or dumping the concept of act as if is the truth of the matter is people draw really hard boundaries and think they don't know how to do something. Because if
Mhm.
they haven't done something in that very specific way to that very specific person, they're like, I don't know how to do that. When the truth of the matter is, you have the skills, and at least I know for the people you work with, the people I work with, they have the integrity that they're not gonna do a bad job. So they don't
Right.
need to go to their prospect and say, well, I've done all this over here, but I haven't done it over here, so I can't help you. When the
Mhm.
truth of the matter is, they will never show up and not do a good job because it's not who they are. So
Right.
the
I mean,
act as if
mhm.
helps you tap into the transferable skills that you might be ignoring.
What I've done when a client brought up something like the first time somebody was bringing up, because I was never a huge Pinterest person. The
I don't know how to
businesses
use
I
it. Yeah,
did
I don't
didn't
know.
really serve or lend itself to being in that
Me
Pinterest
neither.
area. One of my clients really had it in her head that she wanted to really do Pinterest. And I said, listen, I don't do it. I can find an expert to come in and talk to the group, but I need to find out how many people in here are really interested in Pinterest. And so no one else was. So I said to her, I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you a month away from my program. That money, I want you to hire the best Pinterest coach you can for that month with the understanding that you're coming back here. But I want
Mhm.
you to go learn it. And I wanted her because I knew she was still just building her business and wouldn't really have the funds to
Right,
do it. So I said, you take what you would pay me and go do that. And, she'll be a forever client
right.
because I just feel like, that's what you do, come up with creative ways to help still serve people without,
Oh,
could I have faked it and said, "Oh yeah," looked it up real
oh, that's
fast and
not
said
faking it,
some
that's just lying.
lying. I know, I know.
That's just
Yeah,
I
yeah.
and so in my background, and this became really obvious to me, and this is I love this topic. It's extremely, extremely important to know where your job and expertise ends.
Mhm.
And in my last business, I worked with families with aging parents, and I was
Oh.
surrounded by subject matter experts. And
Mhm.
of course, you start to pick things up. I start to pick up the fact that in older humans, and truthfully in dogs too, but that's okay,
Mhm.
UTIs will manifest as dementia.
Yeah,
It's
that's
really weird.
amazing.
Like, I learned
Crazy.
this. That did not mean I had any business telling one of my clients, "Oh, maybe your mom just has a UTI." Like, I knew I had learned a nugget, but my knowledge wasn't there, right? Where does your knowledge end? Where does your job end?
Mhm.
And and refer knowing those boundaries and referring people out, whether or not you give them a month off or not, one, it creates the relationship, like you said, with your client who will forever appreciate how you helped her. Two, it creates a relationship with the referral source. Three, it's the integrity piece. You
Yes.
can tell, and this goes back to something you said when you introduced yourself. I've been around the block. I've done this. I've done this. I've done this. And there are so many people out there trying to sell you something they've never done
Mhm.
or have enough experience with
Mhm.
to break down the pieces into how to actually do it, right? They're parroting a list of tasks that someone should do,
Yeah. Yep.
and
Mhm.
I have an integrity issue with that. It doesn't mean, you know, you don't always have to have done the exact thing. So, for example, there's great basketball coaches out there who've never been a basketball star.
Oh,
I get
totally.
that,
Yes.
but the experience is there.
They studied performance. They
Right,
studied these different areas that create that business, right?
right.
It's like even with my clients that work with me, there's my whole premise is that this is why I like the program we're in
Mhm.
for a higher level looking at business and such. We need to all be in a place where we're constantly learning. That's how I feel.
Yeah, oh gosh,
And
yes.
constantly learning.
Completely.
And does that mean I'm an expert in everything? No. But I know when I'm not an expert in something and when I need to find help for somebody in that, or I know when it's more of a strategy where I can help think through the strategy. You just have to figure out the tactical
The
pieces. You can
implementation,
go
right.
find that. Yeah.
I
So,
finally did my strength finders, and learner was my
oh,
2nd.
second. Yes. Yes. I
2nd.
think we were just talking about that last time
Yeah.
too.
I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Ready Yet podcast. If you're an entrepreneur or small business owner looking for a proven process to help you get either a specific offer or your entire business past that 6-figure mark, join us for 6 Steps to 6 Figures, an online live event starting on November 28th. We're going to get right to the point in an hour a day with strategies you can implement immediately for rapid results. Check out conqueryourbusiness.com for more information. See you there. So
that.
I wanna switch gears a little bit with you because I think the other thing you have that can benefit people is a little bit more of your personal journey. So
Ah,
I love how you said, "I've done all these businesses. It's been fun. I've grown them. I've sold them." And so many people are like, "I'm trying to just do
do
one."
my best.
Right?
Yes. Listen.
So
Yeah.
if we were to lessen people's learning curves, shorten people's learning curves, like, what have you learned you could either say, "Do this," or "Don't do that," that could help people? Like, you've had serial successes, that doesn't mean you have not also had failures, but
Oh,
what's
yes.
been some of the keys to it? What if you were gonna shorten someone's learning curve and just say, "Just go do this."
Um, I think it's digging in
Mhm.
and knowing that you truly do have the confidence and the intelligence to do what you want to do. Unless you have there's some other thing you're dealing with. But for me, what I found is as I made decisions to leave one thing and do another, it was because I felt like I had mastered it. I'm always looking,
Yeah.
and it's probably a problem. I probably should go for trauma therapy before. I have no idea. But I'm always looking for something else that will sort of keep me excited and keep me
But there's
really into
truth to that because if you're not excited about it, there's not enough motivation to do it when it's hard.
that's when you're just clocking in and clocking out of a job. You're getting your paycheck and waiting for the weekend. I never wanted to have a life for that,
No.
like that. And I think it's because my mom was a loan officer with the credit union. We were middle class. Loan officer with the credit union. My father was he went in, he owned a Pepsi truck, so he had his
Oh,
own business. Then he was an executive with Pepsi, hated it, and went back to being a Boilermaker, which he was when he was a teenager. He did that at age 45 because he hated all the corporate stuff. So I saw my dad just sort of do these things as he liked them, and he that was his thing. So I think that for me, what happened is when first grew up in Buffalo. So when I was in this is here's the thing. There's going to be a real aha moment in your life that sort of defines you. And what mine was, as I look back, I was in Buffalo and I had been working with the school system there to developing a peer counseling program. Because my background really is in psychology and counseling, all that stuff. And it became a program that became like an award-winning thing in New York State. So Boys and Girls Clubs of America came and asked me would I want to come and apply that nationally. I had only been out of graduate school for like a year. I was like just trying to figure stuff out and talking to all
like,
these
what's this whole
people.
adulting thing?
Yeah, yeah. But I moved to New York, and when I moved to New York and I saw the different kinds of jobs you could get, the people owning businesses, it just wasn't like that where it was from. It was more middle class. You were a teacher, you were a policeman, it was that. Nothing wrong with that at all. But when I moved to New York and I saw there is this whole other world that you can do things, it made me look at I could write a play. I could write a novel. I could take over, so many different things happened
Well,
there. It
that's
was
why
really
right,
fun.
and I
Yeah.
totally agree with you, and I think one of the benefits that I had growing up and it was very blue collar middle class, but I
Yeah.
also grew up with people from 22 different countries.
Oh, yeah.
So growing up in the public school system in Chicago in the
Mhm.
'70s and '80s during the immigration waves,
Mhm.
there was every year was an influx of people who didn't speak English, had a completely different culture, and we all just figured out how to get along, and you learn people are just people.
Mhm.
And then to your point, I followed the path. I followed the path. I got a job. I got the next job. I did good. I got the next job.
And there's nothing
And
wrong with that. That's
no, but
fine. You
if
know,
you don't have ways to broaden your horizons, you don't get to know what's possible.
right. If you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's so important to be, curiosity did not kill the cat.
Yeah.
Curiosity gave the cat its 9 lives. Is how I
Right.
say, So I think, when you ask what are the biggest things, I get distracted. Please pull me back. I
Oh,
love telling
yeah,
stories
I
and
have
stuff, so please,
you're
yeah.
asking the wrong person to help you do that.
If I could say the top 3 things to consider, like, in terms of making change and how you do that without having total angst, because 'cause I'll tell you,
Yeah.
even when you make a change, it's like you have the day after I quit a job and I'm starting a business, I do have a little bit of buyer's remorse. Like, I bought this new life. What the
Abject
hell am
fear,
I doing?
right?
Right?
Abject
I
terror.
I always have that moment. I can count on that. But that's what inspires me. It's like, okay, I have that sort of day, like, oh my God. And then I go like, okay, so this is what I'm gonna do. And then I start putting the pieces in place. So I think
You
it's
don't let it
realizing,
stop you. You just have it
no,
and you
you
keep
push
going.
through it.
Yeah.
It's just part of the system. It's part of my system. I know what I'm like. I know I go through these things. And I
Self-aware.
think
If I'm nothing, if not self-aware.
so I think the biggest thing is to acknowledge that when you make a change in your life, and don't be afraid to make the change. What is the worst thing that happens? You go back to a job or that kind of life. And I say that kind of life because for me, it just sort of kills me. Like, but
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 you're
for
not
let's
gonna
say,
die.
no, you're not going to die. And let's
I
face,
don't know if you saw, I posted yesterday. I'm obsessed with this concept right now. The
what's
difference
it?
between scary and dangerous.
Oh yeah, right. I
And
didn't see your
how we
post, but I get it.
right, we do so much every day that's technically kinda dangerous.
Hmm.
And yet we stop ourselves from doing something that feels scary, but doesn't actually pose a risk.
Right, right. I like that. I think that's one of the things. I think the second thing is that you just have, if you don't feel like you've got the confidence to really make a big change in your life, you need to have people around you that will help you learn how to be more confident because it is there. You
Yeah.
just got messages somewhere along the way. It's there. And don't let your life
Right.
be small because you're keeping it small.
And I love that you said that. I just wrote this for an event that I'm doing tomorrow. We learn to limit ourselves. We learn to not have confidence. And the way you can easily prove this is the entity, the being with the most confidence, demanding the most things are children.
Hmm.
They have no limits on what they demand
So they didn't
be-
learn to not to do
because
that yet.
we learn not to do it,
Exactly.
which means we can learn to like do it a little bit again.
Exactly. And I think the third thing is to really know that money does a lot. I will say money does a lot to make your life a little easier, but it really does not make everything happy, cheery,
No.
Cinderella with the little bird things. It doesn't. You still have to love what you do because you can be making a ton of, I have friends who did careers because they made so much money. They couldn't
They're
wait to
miserable.
retire. They could not.
Exactly.
I have friends that have retired at the age of 40 and 50, and they're like, "Oh, how when do you think you're gonna retire?" And I'm like,
That's a
"From what? My life?
from
I mean,
what right?
this is weird, you know? Like,
I have the same thing. I like, what do you mean retire? Why would I not do what I wanna do?
yes, and you're gonna find this is probably the fourth thing. You're gonna leave people behind as you go.
Yeah.
Because as you grow and as you do your business, your solid friends who understand who you are and what drives you, and you understand them and what drives them will be with you all of your life. But there are people, as I became more successful with the things that I've done, people don't like it. They're not, it's a weird thing. You will go through people and not to be afraid of that. It is okay. You will find new tribes as you go that support you.
Well, and what I said to a friend of mine, year and a half ago was, I'm like, "Oh my god, I feel like I have no friends." Because
Yes.
right,
Mhm.
because the people who saw me moving past their level of struggle no longer wanted to talk to me, and the people who really, really made it, I wasn't good enough at. But you go through those phases, and I don't think it has to be traumatic as all that. You don't have to go through a big verbal blowout breakup,
Oh,
but
no.
right, some
Oh,
of
you
it's
can
yeah,
if you
you
want. If you
can if
get
you need
some
to.
kind of weird thing out of that,
Right, but truthfully, people fall off, new people come in,
Mhm,
but what I've done with that is try to be massively intentional about the people I'm seeking out.
mm,
Because on the other end, it just kinda happens naturally for
yeah,
me. They come and they go, and they come and they go. But who are you actively seeking to be in the room with?
mhm.
And don't it takes a little going back to your confidence, it takes a little bit of confidence, it takes a little bit of, pull you up by put on your big girl panties.
It takes a lot of big girl panty stuff,
But
actually.
walking in a rooms where you're the little fish
Mhm.
and then just keep walking into those rooms.
Yeah. It's it's really interesting because at one point I was telling women I was working with, like, it doesn't matter if you're wearing flats or stilettos. The stilettos are going to get much more attention if you're walking into a room that way. But when you're walking up that hill, it doesn't really matter. Whatever is most comfortable to you. What matters to me is going up that hill. And it's not like a constant like going up the hill. To me, it's like a joyful run up the hill. You
Right.
know, it's
And you
it.
get to choose that.
I
You get
know.
to
We
choose
are
how you
so
feel
fortunate.
about something.
Yes, yes,
You
yes.
get to choose how you feel, you get to choose your opinion. There's no default
Mhm.
as long as
That's
you do it with intention. I look at I had a time in my business not too long ago, shh, don't tell anyone, that I was completely overwhelmed all the time by my calendar.
mhm.
And I was in absolute reaction mode to how busy I was. And I was letting it do all sorts of terrible things to me. And now every single day, I look at my calendar and I literally say out loud, "Oh my god, look how like this is gonna be a great day. Look at all the things I get to do. This is gonna be a great day. Look at all the breaks I get to have. This is like whatever it is. Look at all
Mhm.
the great this is gonna be." I tell myself what a great perfect day it's gonna be every morning as I'm looking at my calendar so that I can choose how I feel going into the day.
Erin, I think the biggest thing you just said now is something I always hit home with my clients, and I always wanna know what it is they're doing with it, and my friends too. That routine that we set up for ourselves in the morning is gold, and
Yeah.
without that morning routine of like, I know that I need an hour and a half in the mornings to myself, and if I decide to get up late and I'm
Doesn't
rushing,
mean
it is
you
the
don't
worst.
need an hour.
I
No,
just
I understand.
yeah, I mean, I don't have children, so I don't have there's other things that people have to do, and I understand that totally, but for me, I have this life that I've created, and I'm not saying everything's perfect. It never is. It's not like that, but the thing is, there's so much more good than there is stuff that's not
Because
the
you're
perfect
paying
thing.
attention, and the way that I describe pretty much everything you've talked about as we wrap this up.
Is it time to wrap up already? My
Kind of
goodness,
I
geez,
mean, you and I
alright.
could talk in here's the thing, for those of you who are listening, we talk in circles, we go in a lot of different directions, but if you're paying attention, there's all sorts of nuggets in there, and the way that I would wrap this up, and then I wanna give you an opportunity to make sure people know how to get a hold of you.
Sure.
The way I wrap it up is I describe it, you cannot live in reaction mode. You
Mhm.
cannot live right? Reaction mode is not a sustainable business model, it's not a sustainable life model.
It's exhausting.
It's exhausting, you feel completely out of control of your
Mhm.
world. So
Mhm.
what do you need to do? What can you look at in your space and either choose to have a different perspective or take that other action that gets you out of reaction mode so that you can be more intentional,
Mhm.
and it changes everything.
It really does because you know what? It is not gonna be perfect every day. I'm not gonna
No.
have my perfect routine is I try to do it. You try, not even try, but I do it. But you're right. It is not just reacting. I'm always saying, don't do a knee jerk reaction. It
Right,
is like you'll make the worst decision. It won't matter.
don't not do the thing just because it's not perfect. I
Mhm.
avoided a morning routine because for so long because I was being inundated with, "Well, your brain waves are this at this time, and you have to do this at that time," and I'm like, "My life" I don't have kids, but I had a puppy at the time, like, I my life was ruled for potty training, puppy training. So, I avoided
But you
doing a real
chose that. But that was special to you and
right, but
important to you.
and so what I finally did was it doesn't matter if it's perfect neuroscience. What matters is that it happens and it gets better and better and better. And I still laugh because to this day, I do my morning routine with the puppy and with the coffee. He's 5 now and he's 75 pounds. But literally during the commercials of reruns of NCIS Los Angeles.
I love it.
This is not what they would teach you to do, but it works really freaking well for me.
That sets the tone for your day. That's your love.
Senseless violence to bring down and LL Cool J. I mean, it is what it is, right? All right. So with that,
Yes.
if people want to continue this conversation with you, learn how you can help them, learn what you do, learn about Karen just in general, what's the easiest way for them to reach out to you?
I think go to my website, YFlourish. So it's the letter YFlourish.com. And on there, you can get a hold of me. In fact, I just put in a sales audit on that site
Nice.
because in the sales audit, if you guys want it, I would love for you to, take a look at it. Erin, see what you think. I'd love your
I
feedback.
will.
But it's really about the behaviors around how to do sales. Like, how are you nurturing your clients? It's about, you're going to be very surprised what it looks like. But I would invite everybody to take a look at that because sales are usually the hardest part of our business. Or my client's business for sure. So, but yflourish.com would be awesome.
Perfect. Thank you for your
Thank
time,
you.
your
Thank you. This was
stories, your
lovely.
insights, your experience, your
Thank you.
rings, your power ring.
My power rings. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank
Thanks,
you.
Erin.